back to the BeeVlog. I'm Bill. Today I'm going to be assembling some frames. A couple of videos ago I gave a review on the frames that you can get from kellybees.com. These are the foundationless version of the frames. I'm going to be assembling them today. I actually got a second box. I ordered 60 frames. They come in a box of 50 and a box of 10. And this box of 50 was a little bit late in the shipping. And those frames are actually a little bit different than the ones I showed in my review. I talked about how I was having problems getting the top bar to fit in the uprights and how I'm going to have to modify or trim back some of the uprights to get them to fit together without splitting off the little fingers. The box of 50 that came fit better together. However, there's a little bit of wonkiness in the way they were cut. Here's the problem that I'm having with these. You can see, just eyeballing it, that this cut here is not centered in the upright. In fact, if I measure, the finger here is 1/16 of an inch larger than the finger on the right, which measures 1/4 of an inch, and the other one measures 5/16. The problem I have with this is that if once assembled, depending on how the frames sit together in the box, it could increase the spacing in between the combs by as much as 1/8 of an inch, and that is a large difference to me, and I think that, a large difference to the bees as well. So I'm not too happy about that. In my review video I also mentioned how the frames came with nails. These are the nails that came with the set of 10 frames. To me, I think that they're a little too thick and they would be splitting or causing splitting, and I'll show you why, because I assemble mine a little bit differently. But even if they were used in the bottom bar the way that they're intended, I think they would split that bar up. The nails that came with the set of 50 are actually the right nails. These are not even the right size. They're not the right length. So this set actually came with the 1 1/4 inch nails and the 1 inch nails. And they're a nice smaller gauge, so they're not going to be causing any splitting. I actually won't be using the 1 1/4 inch nails. I prefer to use both 1 inch nails and 3/4 inch nails. I got these nails when I purchased the frames from Rule B, and I like to use those ones, and I'll show you how I assemble now. My method of assembly is a little bit different than what you'll see usually. In fact, I learned this method from a video I watched on YouTube about 1.5 years ago. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find that video since, and I've been trying to, and every time I search for videos on how to do frame assembly, I just find the usual method, which I am not particularly a fan of. The typical way of doing a frame assembly is to put the uprights in the top bar, and then nail through the top into the uprights. And then, for added structural support, to nail through the ends of the uprights into what little meat there is here on the underside of the top bar. I'm not really a fan of that method, because trying to nail this way is a pain, and also trying to put a little tiny nail under the top bar here through very little wood is a pain. My preferred method is to nail through the sides instead, and that helps. With that method I can square things up nicely, to make sure that everything is square. Nail through here, and that prevents, on both sides, nail through both sides like that. And that prevents it from pulling apart this way, which is what it's going to want to do when it's jammed in the hive and the bees have glued it all together, and you're using your hive tool to get under and lift that top bar up. It can sometimes pull off the uprights. And I actually do use glue for the assembly. So first I use the exterior grade wood glue, and I like to apply it with a brush. So I put a little bit in a disposable cup. And I apply the glue on the inside of the uprights. I don't bother gluing the top bar because it's hard to get the glue into the spot where I need it. Now, because these ones have those weird fingers, I'm going to make sure I face them both the same direction. Take a little hammer and make sure it's well seated. Now for this I'm using just a small 8-ounce hammer instead of the usual giant, I don't know if this is 12 ounce or what it is, but since these are such small nails, using a larger hammer just tends to get in the way. Then I'm going to take some 1-inch nails and just put them through here. Oh, making sure everything's square as I do it. The other thing you have to watch out for is this rack, or this twist you can get. So make sure it's nice and square and flat as you go. If there's a little bit of twist, I found the frames don't push together nicely inside the box. And then there's gaps the bees glue up. That's it for the top bar. It's done. The next step is the bottom bar. So for that I just put it upside down, apply a little bit of glue, and put the bar in. Give it a little tap. And for this I use the 3/4 inch nails, and I get 2 on each end. There isn't as much stress put on the bottom bar. It doesn't get glued to anything. So there's really no risk of that falling out or being pulled out. Make sure your nail goes in straight. It's not coming out, so I'm just going to keep it going. Well, got a little bit out through the edge there, but it's alright. Then this goes into a hive body, ready to be used. This is a foundationless frame. You can see it has a comb guide on it for the bees to attach the comb, and hopefully they'll build it out straight. The other benefit of having these nails on the sides of the uprights is that when you are separating the frames, they can be really glued together pretty tightly right there, and as you dig in with your hive tool and pop them apart, you run the risk of splitting this wood off the edge here. So that nail provides just a little bit of extra support and structure to that upright, preventing any kind of splitting. If you have hundreds of frames to build, this method does take a lot of time and can be pretty labor intensive. Some people like to put together jigs and build 10 frames, 10, 15 frames at a time using a pneumatic stapler. Nothing wrong with that. If you've got a lot of frames to do, that's probably recommended. You won't be able to get the staples into the sides here though, the way I do it. I actually prefer this more laborious method because it's somewhat therapeutic as I get to work out here in the garage and just nail things together. You can listen to music or listen to podcasts and just take the time doing it. I never really have to nail together hundreds of frames, just being a backyard hobbyist. You know, I'm doing maybe 60, 70 frames at a time, and it's really not a difficult task to do. For these frames that don't have a comb guide built into them, that come with this breakout wedge, I just break it out, clean it up, turn it 90 degrees, glue and nail it in. And I'll show you how I do that. I like to use just a small chisel to get it out. You don't have to use a chisel, it pops out with just your fingers or a screwdriver. But since I need to use the chisel to go ahead and clean it up, I like to just have it on hand. Sometimes there's a little bit of wood burr, a little wood burr on here, or a splinter that you need to clean off. This one came out clean on this side, but it looks like it left it behind on here. So that needs to be removed. You can either do that with a chisel like this, or you can use just a utility knife or a pocket knife or whatever you prefer. It's pretty easy to remove. Just make sure you get it all. Okay. So then I apply a small bead of glue. Not too much, you don't need to make a mess here. Then in goes that piece of wood that you removed, the wedge again. And that just gets put in place there. Then you can either nail by hand or use staples. I have a little pneumatic brad nailer with 5/8 inch nails. Now these nails I have to put in at a slight angle because the dimension here between this thickness of wood here is exactly 5/8 or slightly less. And since I could probably try to set the nailer to not recess the nail, but that's pretty difficult to get accurate. A lot of trial and error. I don't want to have a blowout on the other side with the nail coming out the other side. So I just tip it at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, and just put in 3 brads. Doesn't need a whole lot more than that. That's it. So I have the comb guide now for the bees to use as a guide. Now I don't apply any wax or foundation strip. I've tried foundation strips and they work great. They help the bees make nice straight comb, but I don't want to introduce any foreign wax, and until I have enough of my own wax, I'm just going to keep using the comb guides. I don't like to paint on any wax either. I think that's just an extra step that's really not necessary. I found that the bees were attaching comb just fine without any kind of foundation or wax, just using a comb guide.